Hi, everyone. I'm Robert Rivera-Amezola. And as Edward said, I'm from the Key School. And I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And as Edward said, the title of our seminar was Cities Through the Lens of Race, Class, and Gender. And it was led by Dr. Rickie Sanders. Sally O'Brien was our coordinator. And this was my first seminar. The big goals of the class sort of revolved around, we had different goals, but these seem to be the most important of the class. I think Rickie wanted us to master the art of asking questions as they pertain to race, class, and gender, to appreciate complexity and uncertainty, to occupy that space that's in the middle, that life is not black and white, but really complex. And she wanted us to think about the how of things rather than why they are as they are, to go from the theoretical to the specific and to adapt all of what we were going to talk about to any kind of grade or place that we teach. Some of our topics were as follows. We really delved into these three frameworks of race, gender, and class. I thought I knew some things about these. Certainly have used the word like intersectionality a lot myself, but I was really elucidated more about how much of a legal term it really is and the gap that it served within the legal community. So my thinking about intersectionality changed, and how I use it has been refined. Some of our other topics, I think these pictures sort of cover. We talked about immigration and gentrification in the city. We talked about public and common spaces in the city. The picture on the bottom left is of Reading Terminal Market, discussing the ideas of Elijah Anderson, who suggested that spaces like these, or Rittenhouse Square, for instance, or what he called the cosmopolitan canopy, where different groups and races that would normally be segregated or put into different, or interact in their separate spaces, would interact together. Certainly a very controversial topic, but one that was engaged in a lot of conversation among us. On the far right is Stuart Hall, who talked about the idea of encoding and decoding as we talked about media analysis and text analysis. He thought that people interpret media texts in different ways depending on their cultural background, right? Their economic standing and their personal experiences. But he also thought that audience members play a role in decoding messages and even changing them. And his ideas kind of got me to thinking about my little unit, which I'll talk about in a moment. I really hope I'm doing justice to my group. We had buckets, and we met in small breakout groups to talk about our units. And I think our units fell into these 4 different buckets. We came from 12th, grade CTE teachers all the way to elementary teachers. And we taught in different parts of Philadelphia, from West Philadelphia, the Northeast, South Philadelphia, Fishtown, and Kensington. A group of teachers wanted to do a lot of asset mapping in their curriculum and city planning. Their curriculums revolved around this kind of asset thinking about neighborhoods. Community walks and interviews were really important in this kind of curricular work. Looking at city planning both historically and what it could become in the future was also a topic. And one person in particular was interested in looking at the city through an environmental justice lens and as a city as an ecosystem. Another bucket that some of our curricular units fell into was looking at the city through poetry, prose, and the arts. Poetry as an authentic mode of expression and identity formation, synthesizing learning about poetry and the cities to write poems about students' experiences themselves in the city of Philadelphia, using metaphor and imagery to give voice to their neighborhood. Another book, it was looking at the city through the lens of the African-American experience, making African-American history in philosophy more relevant through exploration of local sites with powerful meaning, like the site of the MOVE bombing or the 1844 riots in Kensington and Southwark. Really unique ideas like Black geography emerged from one curricular unit where the history of racism is tied to current disinvestment in communities of color, and a concept called marronage, which was new to me, places of refuge for marginalized people that become eventually places of liberation. And then finally, this bucket is one that talked really about what could become, what are the journeys that students take and now have taken in the past, and where they could lead, and how their own agency can take them to uh, dreaming of neighborhoods that could become, or as one colleague put it, dream hoods in her curricular unit. So my particular unit is called The City Through the Lens of Race, Gender, Class, and Roblox. I am the digital literacy teacher of my school, and the grade range I teach is K through 6. So I see kids once every 6 days in the computer lab, and we talk about digital literacy and the responsibility of being digital citizens. And it occurred to me as I was teaching remotely, as we all were teaching remotely, that often, or not often, I hope not often, but many times, my students were doing something else other than listening to me. And I think that probably happened to a lot of us. When you look at students' computers, they have a dozen tabs open, like all of us, but some of those tabs are YouTubes. And at the elementary level, a lot of them are games. And for third and fourth graders, Roblox is a game platform where many games are chosen and they play and they really like to talk about. And so I started thinking about this idea of structure versus agency after Dr. Saunders had us read a piece from Lewis Mumford. Lewis Mumford defines the city as an economic organization, an institutional process, a theater of social action, and an aesthetic symbol of collective unity. So when I thought about that definition, I thought about the possibilities that children might have within a highly defined structure. So I began to wonder about, especially with our younger students and their positionality within a digital matrix, within a virtual world, which can become structured around them. I wondered what their agency is, what they're within that positionality. What could they do? How could they be creative rather than simply being consumers? So this is just a snapshot of one of a 10-day lesson. A day we would begin to explore the city through the lens of class. We would take each framework on one day and then take it through social justice. And the final 5 days would be the creation of their own games. Every day would begin with a mentor text. For this day, it would be this text called Everything Naomi Loved, a story about a little girl's neighborhood in a large urban setting that's slowly being gentrified. And as she experiences losing many of the things that she loved, including her best friend and corner stores, as the city begins to transform. A great entryway to talking about complicated processes like gentrification in class to third and fourth graders. Each day we would analyze the same photo, a Creative Commons photo I discovered. To the left, as you see, 2 women pushing strollers. Dr. Saunders often said that a good picture does not really need a caption. And I think that in this particular photo, she's right. You could look at that picture, and each day I'm going to take the children through each framework and have them look at that picture through race, class, and gender, make notes in their journal, and then transfer some of that thinking into the games that they play. The one game in particular in Roblox is Brookhaven, that's incredibly popular, 80 million players a month worldwide. This screenshot is my particular avatar. You can see right here, very interesting elements that one can take talking to kids about class. I don't have enough Robux, for instance, to purchase one of the high-end vehicles, so I'm stuck with a scooter. And so I'm moving through a neighborhood, and some of these houses can be quite elaborate, as you see the one in the background. And then you can have vacant lots where you really may not be able to afford a house, but hopefully eventually we'll get to. And as I said, all of this eventually moving the last 5 days where they would use the Roblox Studio or some other platform to create their games. unit has been designed so that even if you don't have technology at your disposal, this could be done within using screenshots and discussion platforms. Dr. Saunders ended the class by saying that she wanted us to appreciate the fullness of geography and everything you can do with it. I think that we would all agree that we did that. So thank you, Dr. Saunders. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to everybody. And if you're interested in these slides, here's the quick credit slide.